Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Welcome to Q&A with Qlik. Today, we're going to be talking about Qlik Talend Cloud and Qlik Cloud Data Integration. My name's Troy Rainey. I'm a digital support program manager, and I largely help put together webinars and helpful videos like this one. We've got a great expert panel for you. Manuel, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure, Troy. Hey, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. So, Manuel Salgado here. I'm a expert in data integration. I've been with Qlik now going on 7 years. Part of the Heritage Attunity acquisition a few years ago, and I've been in the data integration, data management space for over 20, from a lot more years than I want to count. So just here to help out and answer any questions as I'm able to.
Thank you
Thanks for
so
having me.
much. Ed?
Hi, everyone. My name's Ed Ost. I'm on the integration pre-sales architecture team, along with Manuel. I'm Legacy Talend. I've been with Qlik now 3 years. I'm with Talend or Qlik now a total of 14 years.
That's fantastic. All right. Well, when people registered, they had an opportunity to submit some questions ahead of time. So we'll start with those. First question. When will native QVD connectors be available in Talend? You own both companies. It seems like a great opportunity to fill that gap. Anyone want to take that one?
I'll take that one. There are connectors today because rather than QVDs, you can use Parquet as your output for communicating between Talend jobs and Qlik Analytics, QDA. So just write to Parquet from your Talend jobs and you should be good to go.
Great.
And I would add to that the direction that I've even though this is more of the analytics question, right? They're looking to standardize on Parquet as a format, the open format for transferring data between Qlik applications.
Fantastic. Next question. I have an application that I want to reload hourly. This is incremental. I'd like to reload a full reload once a week or once a month. Can the same application be on two different reload schedules? And if so, how is that set up?
Well, I can take the first part of this, but I think you have some options here. And it's not clear from the question whether you're using Talend or you might be doing that with QDI or QCDI in terms of the microbatch scheduling. So let's assume first that this is a Talend job
Hmm.
and you would like to schedule it on two different periods. That can be done. Each Talend job that you design is published as a task in the Talend Management Console, and that's part of your Qlik Cloud operations panel, browser user interface. So you publish a job as a task, and then you can have multiple tasks using the same job. Task A might run nightly, and task B running the same job might run weekly. Manuel, do you want to talk a little bit about choices there for QCDI or QDI? If you're doing replication jobs, I think QDI and QCDI are the way to go.
Right, right. I think we can definitely configure the frequency there. I'm thinking though, if this is a analytics question and a reload of a Qlik Sense application, um, there's gonna be a forum for that, not this one that Troy will point you to, but I believe I'm not the QDA the analytics expert, but there's an API that could to trigger the refreshes on a whichever schedule you desire, right? But I'm just gonna leave it at that from the analytics side. And yes, to Ed's point, if you're looking about the frequency of data, how that data gets moved from the source to the platform and to the analytics application, then there's plenty of options and combining the options for the schedules you're looking for within QCDI.
Yeah, and I'm pretty familiar with the analytics side, and application automation provides a great
Mhm.
template for reloading apps on the front end. So you can have multiple parallel reloads, and the increments can get down to every 30 seconds. It's pretty awesome. But again, that is on the analytics side. Next question. What's the difference between both collections and spaces within Qlik Cloud? Now that sounds like it's on the
I'll
analytics
take.
side, but Manuel, what do you say?
No, yeah, I was gonna answer it because so collections are an analytics construct to group content, that you're serving up in terms of your Qlik application. So you're only gonna see that within the analytics space. However, you're gonna see spaces in both because spaces is how we manage user access, role-based access control, right? Who can see and work with what in the analytics space, the applications and QEDs and data sets. In the integration side, the projects, the pipelines, right? So it's I would say spaces are for managing that access, right? More often a mechanism for role-based access control, and collections are really for grouping content within the analytics space.
Yeah, I totally agree. Collections really more just kind of tagging things to give them a specific label and help make things easier to find.
Right.
That's a great. A next question that snuck into the chat is Qlik Talend Cloud the replacement for QCDI or old Talend Cloud?
I think the answer is yes, in the sense that it includes QCDI and the Talend Cloud. So Qlik Talend Cloud is a package offer. You get them both. And that's the structure of that package. You can purchase them independently. So in that sense, Qlik Talend Cloud is QCDI plus Talend Cloud. And for those who are not familiar with Talend, the Talend management console that I mentioned before is how you schedule and operate all of the jobs that you design in Talend Studio.
Great. Thank you for clarifying that. Okay, next question. I would like to know when the connector to sync data to Kafka topics will be available in QCDI. Currently, it is available in Qlik Replicate, the on-prem version. Any estimation on that?
I'll take that one, Troy. So I spoke to PM as soon as I knew we had this question coming. So the current estimate, and it's an estimate, not a commitment, right? Safe harbor here because things can and do change sometimes, but they feel pretty confident that by the end of the year, December, this will be available in Qlik Talend Cloud data integration.
That's awesome. Okay, next question. I would like to sync 5 tables across 3 environments as they all use the same reference tables. When a reference is added to our production database, we would like to replicate this to our validation and development database. We have 2 databases, product and validation on one server and dev on another. That's a lot of information there. You guys
Uh,
want
I
to take
would
a
take a stab
stab at?
at, you can jump in here, but it this sounds like a replication use case. It, if it's always it looks like it's trickling down from prod down to the development and validation. So you could definitely have a replication task, or let's call it a replication task to use what we call the log streaming functionality. So within Replicate, Qlik Replicate, there's this ability to stream a change to a table to multiple targets, with the one change to as many targets as you need. So this would be a matter of configuring log streaming with that replication to send that data to the 2 different databases as soon as a change happens in the main one in production.
And there was a follow-up to that, referring to a SQL Server.
SQL Server, yeah. So it would, yeah. So definitely, yeah. This is this is definitely the bread and butter of Qlik Replicate. Yes.
Great. Thank you. All right, next question. I see some great questions are coming in. Keep them coming. In Qlik Talend Cloud, Replicate on-premises continued to be commercialized as an add-on product, buying source plus targets. Anybody want to address that?
Uh,
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I was gonna say so we have the Qlik Talend Cloud, the pure SaaS-based offering. Qlik Replicate continues as the client managed offering. Usually you could conceivably buy both of them in one in one deal, right? Usually they're sold separately, but you can buy both of them. Not sure about the question of so in Qlik Talend Cloud, if you're just acquiring that offering, it's got its own replication mechanism, right? That is innate to the cloud offering. You don't really get a replicate with that. You get the whole package part of the cloud, which has what we call a data movement gateway, which which does some of the functions that replicate would do for you from reading from the source and the like. But they're separate. I'm not clear on the question, but I would just say they're separate. One is SaaS based, one is client managed. There's overlap between the sources and targets. If the question is if I don't have a source or a target, the end goal is to have parity between the two, at least for the enterprise type of sources and targets, right?
Right.
But we just need to know more about, the specific pairing and see what, I'm trying to do my best without really understanding the question very, very well.
Yeah.
So,
Always more context is always good. And if you have questions about the pricing and such, feel free to reach out to your account manager. They can always help.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
I think that's the direction I would tend. In reading this question, I interpreted the question emphasis on the is there a continued commercial investment in on-premise replication?
Oh, yeah.
And so what I want to reassure people is, Qlik Replicate is still an offering if you want to do purely on-prem. However, if you want the convenience of cloud-based SaaS management, and all you're doing is replication, you could use QCDI without Talend. Okay. Now, if you are going to use some Talend for some of styles of your integration and replication, then Qlik Talend Cloud is the best package offering. The second part of that question was, I believe, related to the pricing structure. So with whether it was Qlik Replicate or QCDI, there was some question of sources and targets being a mechanism for driving your pricing. You should talk to your sales rep for that, certainly. In Talend, you always get all the sources and connectivity with Talend in all cases. So hopefully that provides enough context for the user's question.
Great. Thank you. No, that was good. That was very good. Next question. Can we store data from Talend directly on Qlik Analytics Cloud for Qlik Sense usage without needing any third-part storage? Good question.
I think this is the same as the prior answer. If you're loading a QVD, you can use Parquet format to take your data, convert it with Talend, and write it to Parquet format, and then load it into your Qlik Cloud Analytics. And once you've loaded it up there, you don't need any more third-party storage.
Exactly.
Because it's in memory.
Great. Moving along, is there a prediction on when user session information will be available to be accessed and analyzed? I used a lot of studies using ClickView server logs. Oh, we're looking for usage on the cloud, and that sounds like it's on the analytics side. If it's usage from
Yeah,
users,
this
I would
sound. Mhm.
I would say there is uh, some analyzer logs or apps that are available for Qlik Cloud admins. There's a recording of a previous Techspert talk that we did all about, it's called Qlik Cloud Admin 101. And in that we talked about some really great log file, not log files, but apps to help manage and review your users' activity on the tenant. So I would check out that and I'll try and post a link to that. follow up about the question before, a couple questions ago, whether they were using Talend Studio. Great. Next question.
Oh, okay, yeah. So that one.
Does
So
that
yeah,
make
you would
sense?
no. So yeah. So if you're using Tansu, you definitely need to look at replication for better suitability of the scenario you were talking about. Yeah.
Great. All right. I see a lot of questions from the same user. Let's see if they work together. And I have about 75 Excel sheets on a Google Drive in various folders, but the files are identical in structure. Each file has a large number of sheets in it. However, only in every sheet, only one sheet has to be imported in cloud. Okay, so in every document, there's one sheet. It seems now that Google Connector has lots of problems with this. When uploading the file first to Qlik Cloud, then importing has no problems. Any bugs known with Qlik Google Drive connector? All right. That was,
I think I can take that to the
oh,
extent
great.
that it's more of a QDA question if you're talking about the Qlik Google Drive connector in a pure analytics context. But if you have a more complex environment, or you want to do some workflow like this, where you've got some conventions about the spreadsheet structure and the different folders, and you can somehow determine which of the sheets to import, well, you could do that with Talend, right? You can even code the selection criteria to determine which sheet needs to be uploaded, write it to Parquet file like we said, and then it'll be up in QDA.
That's a great suggestion. Wonderful. Next question, I think it was a follow-up to a previous one. Is there any roadmap to read QVDs inside Talend Studio?
You
Don't
know,
have
not
anybody from product management here, but I don't know if you guys have heard any talk.
I have not heard that. Of course, if you have the QVD in Parquet format, like, hey, I wrote my QVD into Parquet format so that I could send it to Qlik Cloud. Well, you still have the Parquet format, and of course, you can read that in Talend. But if you have data already up in Qlik Cloud, and it's in memory, and it's not in a QVD, I suppose you could perhaps download it. I don't know a lot about the QDA APIs, and download it potentially as a Parquet file. But right now, I haven't heard many use cases for that. Usually, data is going the other direction. It's
Yeah.
going into QDA for analytics. You get it into memory, so you can do the dynamic discovery with Qlik Analytics, and that's a human at the end of the consumption chain.
I just wanted to take the opportunity to talk about Qlik ideation. So that sounds like a really good candidate for a product suggestion to improve the product. And here on Qlik Community, if you go to Discover, oh no, I guess it's Support. Ideation, you can find this page, and I'll include a link. But this is where users like yourself can suggest improvements for the product, and even review previously recommended ideas and upvote ideas. And our product management team takes a look at this and weighs it highly when it comes time to make improvements. So definitely check that out. Next question. Since we need to change our ETL software, which is currently Pentaho, open source version, what is the best option we have? Talend Cloud, Talend On-Prem, QCDI. What are the parameters we must consider to make the right choice? It's a good question.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I could.
I'll go ahead.
Yeah, I'll take this. Pentaho is closer to Talend in terms of a general purpose ETL and ELT tool. But in terms of the parameters, I would say take a look at your use cases and then partition them between Talend and QCDI, or maybe QDI. So maybe starting with pure ETL. I'm reading from a file. I'm not particularly looking to do transformations in the database, so I'm not doing pushdown. Okay, those should be done in Talend, and Pentaho is capable of doing that. You have it, the open source version. You can transition those kinds of jobs to Talend. If, however, your actual use cases, which could be implemented today in Pentaho, and which many people have done in Talend, but if they're actually doing basically replication from one database to another, then I would suggest using either QDI, Qlik Replicate, or QCDI. And the criteria for which of those you should use is, hey, if I'm just moving the data and I'm keeping the schema from the same in the source as in the target, and I don't need to do any more transformations in the target, well, then use Qlik Replicate. But usually, when you do replicate data, you're replicating from maybe an OLTP system to a more analytics-oriented data warehouse or data mart, and you do want to do some transformations. And in those cases, if the target is one of the supported targets of QCDI, that's all the cloud data warehouses, Azure, Redshift, BigQuery, Snowflake, Databricks. If it's one of those, then use QCDI to do the pushdown transformations. Now, if, and I know it gets pretty long, right? These are all the context parameters, right? If you're replicating data on-prem and you want to do pushdown transformation after you replicate it, well, again, your first choice is QCDI if the data is in Microsoft SQL Server. When I said Azure, I should have said Microsoft SQL Server as well. So if it's on-prem replication plus transformation, use QCDI. If it's on-prem replication, maybe to Oracle or to Teradata, and you want to do push-down transformation on those targets, well, then you have to use Talend. I hope that covered the bases and wasn't too overwhelming.
If I may, I just trying to summarize for the user, right? What are the things to look at? You want to look at three things. Let's keep it simple. What are your sources, right? And where are your sources? What are they and where are they, right? If you're talking about, do you have a lot of SaaS sources? Are you looking at SaaS applications, ServiceNow, Workday, Salesforce, that stuff? Then our cloud offering would be very compelling to get data from those sources, right? So that might be something to think about. Do you also have Talend? If you don't want cloud, there's Talend, of course, has connectors for those SaaS-based, API-based sources as well. So that's one thing to look at. If it is not, then you could look at a replication. Are you looking to do near real-time log-based change data capture, CDC? Then we have replicate, or we have the cloud data integration, depending on how you want to manage that and what you want to do with the data once it gets to the target. And of course, the target is the second thing. So sources first, targets also very important, right? What is the target or targets of your data? And that would lead you through, okay, what is supported in the different platforms. And third would be what I talked about. What do I want to do with the data once I have taken it and moved it somewhere? Do I need to do some more transformations? I'm going to rope in a question here that I saw in the chat about ETL versus ELT, right? That's important. Do I want to do ETL, traditional ETL, where as I'm extracting the data, I'm transforming it in memory and then loading it to the target, right? If you have that use case and you're using Pentaho in that way, then Talend would probably be the best choice, because right now the Qlik Talend Cloud, it's purely ELT based, right? So ELT, extract, load, and transform, which means we extract the data from the source, load it to the target, and then transform it with pushdown, right? So you want to look at those three things. Again, to summarize, sources and where they're at, targets and where they're at, and who supports them, and then what I want to do, what do I want to do with the data, and how I want to do it, ETL, ELT.
Well, that was a big question, but thank you for going through all those details.
Mm-hmm.
All right, next question. Is there a Qlik Storage connector in Talend? My question is not format, but connector.
No, there is not. That is a good request for the ideation portal. And just to clarify for other people in the audience, I believe the gentleman's question is, hey, I know I'm going to write to Parquet and I can upload it to the QDA into Qlik Cloud. I can use the APIs from Qlik Cloud to do that. But to do that today, I have to use A, the Parquet output format, and then B, I have to call the Qlik Cloud API using our generic REST connector in Talend. It would be preferable from a user experience to have a dedicated widget for Qlik QDA Cloud so that all I have to do is configure, my tenant information, and I don't have to worry about the details of all the REST APIs. So this is a great request for the ideation portal.
Totally agree. Okay, next question. When pushing them first to Microsoft OneDrive, there seems to be no problem.
This
However,
is a continuation of
right.
the prior one. I think this is mostly QDA oriented, so I would advise that.
I see there was a follow-up further down asking if Qlik Compose might be a solution from the same user.
Manuel, it's like down at the bottom of the.
Yes,
it's like
yes,
four
yes.
down.
Working from Google Drive.
So
Okay.
let me try to read back through the. So Compose wouldn't be a solution for a Google Drive or OneDrive type functionality, no, which is what I think the whole thread is, unless like you want to add more context, but yeah.
Okay. Thanks for picking up all those
But
pieces.
what might work some is app automation might help him.
Yeah, that's a great
it
suggestion.
sounds like he's got a general workflow issue, reading a bunch of spreadsheets from one area. If we mentioned that Talend could do some of that processing if you're having problems, but I think the center of your the user's workflow is in QDA. This session is not on QDA, so I don't want to spend a lot of time here, but workflow elements, you might use app automation there as well.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion. Okay, next question. When my Talend job, which uses tmap to process a table containing 7 million records, I get an error message. Java.lang.out of memory, error, Java heap space. How the Talend process large table data? How does it handle that? So I guess looking into an error.
Yeah, so just for the general audience, tmap is the centerpiece of many Talend jobs. It's for ETL transformations of typically a primary source and then usually one or more, quite many sometimes, lookup tables. And the lookup tables are usually in batch jobs stored in memory just in terms of speed. So if you have a lot of records in the lookup table, it's going to use up a lot of memory. Now you can do the estimates of how much memory you need with just a little spreadsheet and looking at the schema. But honestly, the easiest way is just to turn on the memory profiler and do a profiling run, and you'll see exactly how much it's needing. When you have 7 million rows, unless you have a very beefy server, you're pretty much guaranteed that it's not going to fit all in memory. So when you set up your tmap, set up the persist to hard disk, so it'll spill over to hard disk, and then it will fit. Now there are other choices as well. Keep in mind that Talend standard jobs generate Java that run as a standalone Java app in a JVM on a single server because it's just a regular Java app. But Talend will also generate Spark code, and that Spark code you can submit as a task. It's completely transparent to you. You can submit it as a Yarn client or to Databricks. It'll run natively on Cloudera or Databricks. And in that case, it's going to scale it across the entire cluster. And if you really need that, then that's a good option. But 7 million, although it's a lot, you can still potentially do it on a single server. Depends on the rest of your workflow, whether you want to consider the Spark option and whether you have Spark in your environment.
Great. Okay, next question. As someone coming from the Qlik side of the Qlik Talend merger, should I wait to see the platform converge more before I start looking at the legacy Talend functionality like data quality rules, semantics, etc.? What's the timeline on platform convergence? And I guess by
I
convergence,
can
I guess
take
we're
that
talking about
one.
Talend Cloud.
Yeah. Well, it's not really a question of just Talend Cloud. The data
Sure.
quality rules and data quality in general are a capability that's fairly horizontal and spread across the traditional Talend product in a few different ways. But the one capability, data quality rules, is managed. The rule lifecycle is managed in the cloud interface. I don't think you need to wait to look at this. My take on convergence is a little bit different. It's not like the products are going to come together and become one product, because the products are already designed as fit for purpose for a particular user persona. So we typically say that Talend is more focused on a technical data engineer who deals with the technical details of a large variety number of connectors, and is also doing a lot of complex, typically ETL, but could be ELT as well, processing. Stuff like data quality rules that you mentioned, transformations, of course, you can do with pushdown as well, but also things like fuzzy matching, deduplication, survivorship, all of that. So when we talk about data quality rules, you want them to be cross-cutting. And so they should be common across the entire platform. But it's not really a question of convergence between the two platforms that will determine when that's ready. You can apply that today and get the benefit today. After all, you have the operational console already merged between Qlik Talend Cloud, between the TMC, which is the Talend piece, the single sign-on that unites them, and the QCDI data spaces. Now, with that said, you still have other questions of which tool in the toolbox to use, and I think Manuel did a very good job of describing when to use QDI, when to use QCDI, or when to use Talend.
Great. Next question. I'm migrating an old .NET application to a new system. The APIs are now called using Python. There's not an exposed HTTP REST API. Can the system component leverage this?
And I think, yeah, Troy, I'll take this because I think there's 3 questions down. Is a
Oh,
follow-up, I
you're
think,
right.
to this one, where it
Yeah,
says,
talking about QCDI, I have an Oracle SQL Server and MySQL as source, and replicating one table from MySQL to SQL Server. Doing the talent job now based on orchestration. And did I get it all? Yeah.
I think that's it. So yeah, I'm assuming based on that it's from the same person, then there's in succession that they may be related. So
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna take them as related because so there's not Python. We don't interact directly with Python in QCDI and replicate. Now Talend I know can call anything, so it could call a Python program, but I don't know that that's what you want to do here. And based on the questions, right? I would definitely look at if the objective is to take data from that the application is producing, in a SQL Server, Oracle database, or MySQL, whichever one, right? If the objective of that is to take data from it and move it somewhere else, another database, then definitely you want to look at QCDI offering for that, the movement part of it first, and then go from there in terms of, if that suit the needs. Yeah.
A follow-up just came in. The vendor
Oh,
will not give us database access. Oof, that sounds like
oh,
it's an issue.
yeah. So, so for for I mean, no database access.
Yeah, it's third-party
That'd be a little.
API.
That's a little. Well, okay. So yes, we
Yeah,
have. If you have an API, you have talent that you could potentially right,
maybe we
used
can,
to call an API, but
yeah, maybe the gentleman could add some additional detail. I'm going to start with the first part of his post, given that he follows up and talks about replication later, but then if we can't get access to the logs, you might have a problem. But I think there are some choices. Manuel, correct me. I'm going to start with the replication part first. Even if they don't have, it's not as good as the replication offering, but isn't there an ODBC source that does
that's what I
not
was.
do log-based?
Yeah, that's why I wanted the person to clarify when they say they won't give us DB access. Does that mean like complete no access, or does that mean can I at least make a read-only connection, to the engine
There
using
must be
ODBC?
something. We're
Yeah,
not
I
trying
mean,
to hack it.
it can't be, if it's purely API based, then okay, we'll just talk Talend. But just for the gentleman who's asking the question, I'm going to interpret it as the third-party vendor is not going to let me do log-based change data capture because it's his database backend, but he will let me query the databases with ODBC or JDBC. And in that case, there is a generic ODBC connector, which is not as efficient as log-based change data capture. Keep in mind that you are putting a workload on that database server. And if it's an OLTP system, you might be very sensitive to workloads, additional replication workloads, putting a load on that server. But with that said, you can do it. And it's a lot easier to configure. I often think of Qlik
and
yeah.
He just posted a reply. He was just given an API reference in .NET. So
that's it.
No, that's it.
Okay, so then you got nothing. All right, so back to the Talend pack.
Yeah.
Okay, in the gentleman's first post, they say the APIs are currently called using Python. That doesn't mean the APIs can't be invoked with Java, whether it's a socket. I'd be surprised if it's SOAP, but just about anything can be invoked with Talend. So you can definitely invoke it. It doesn't mean you have to invoke a Python app because it's inter-process communication. You don't need the extra hop. You just need to know the details of the API and you can invoke it with Talend and get it back directly.
Great. And I just wanted to point out that there are some great forums on Qlik Community if you have some complicated questions like this that you might want to take a look at. They're varied, there's a wide variety of topics and forums, both for Talend and Qlik data integration and Qlik Cloud data integration. So that's also a good forum if you're not getting the answers you're looking for. Maybe, I mean, we've got over 200,000 users on Qlik Community, so somebody may have a better solution for you. All right, next question. If we're using QCDI to load data into Snowflake at the moment, but we need to ingest files, what is our best solution? Use Snowflake native tools or learn Talend? Or wait for QCDI to support files?
I'll take this because this is near and dear to my heart. In fact, this is a similar use case to this is what brought me to Talend a long time ago, maybe 10, 15 years ago, when Talend was a different thing than it is today. But I just have to say, right, yes, there are, there's facility in Snowflake. There's they have come up with, of course, ways to load data into Snowflake from files, right? I would say that the nice thing in this, and currently, right, Qlik Talend Cloud QCDI doesn't yet have this capability natively. But what we do have in Talend is a great interface, regardless of the format of your file. You don't have to code it. You don't have to learn it. You're really not learning a new, programming. You're really configuring a connector to fit the file that you're getting and you're loading into Snowflake. So I would definitely say, and Ed can probably second this, that you want to look at Talend, right? If you want to keep the scripting and the coding to a minimum, right? And just focus on the configuration and automation of the process. Because that's what I had to do a long time ago with We were getting 30 different file formats from 30 different vendors, and I needed to figure out a way to quickly automate this and load it into, back then it was Oracle, but it doesn't matter, Snowflake, Oracle, right? And Talend was the fastest way to get this done without having to learn the particular loading tools of the database. So, and it future proofs you in case tomorrow you want to send those files somewhere other, than Snowflake. So for many reasons, I would say Talend is where you want to start.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Next question. It's a bit of a two-parter. Trust scores for a particular database on Talend Cloud used to have ranking parameters like usage, completeness, etc. Will this still be available, and would it be possible to retrieve that score through an API?
I believe there is an API for that. You can check the Talend APIs page. You can get there from help.talend.com, but there's a dedicated Talend API page, and you should be able to download those.
Great.
And do whatever processing that you want. The trust score will continue to be available. It's probably going to evolve and get integrated into some of the newer data catalog capabilities.
That's great. And I'll see if I can find a link to that specific page, but definitely look for it on the documentation site. Next question. Why Qlik Data Movement store data in AWS S3 bucket in CSV format and not in Parquet format?
We probably need
with
to.
that.
Yeah, is this for the what part of the process you're loading into? Well, yeah, no, I'm not clear on this. Which part of the process we're referring to?
Could this be the data gateway?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But is it the gateway for loading into a Qlik application directly? Is it the one?
No,
Is that the use case?
I think it's
Because that's the only time we would write a file, right?
Oh, right.
Yeah, it would be to load to a QED, but no.
Because it's data movement, and to me, that's the data integration gateway.
Oh, is he selecting S3 as a target for maybe Qlik replicate?
Yeah.
From just plain old S3 as the target, and he wants Parquet as the output format.
Yeah, because there's a way to configure it. But okay, so Ed, yes. So there is if that's a scenario, and we do have it, I believe we can write to S3 that, yeah, we now can in Qlik Cloud the same way. There is a setting to change it from CSV to Parquet in the settings of the target. Okay, in both Replicate and Qlik Cloud. If that's any question.
I hope that's the question.
Yeah, we're doing the best we can here. Okay, next question. I have a client who needs to replace Elasticsearch with another solution. Currently, they use Elasticsearch to analyze logs from various transactions and to monitor the usage behavior of applications as they are the institution that collects state information, making their data highly sensitive. The internal audit department verifies who is accessing their data. Is it possible to provide a solution with Qlik Talend Cloud? That was a lot of information in there.
I think this is certainly possible. Given that the data is already in Elasticsearch, and you're looking to do analytics on it, it depends whether Elasticsearch has the out-of-the-box deeper analytics capabilities that I think the user is looking for, or given that it's audit, that I'm assuming that they would like to do the more complex exploration with a QDA dashboard. That's my thought. So then the challenge becomes, how do I get that analytics data from Elasticsearch into QDA? That's my interpretation. It could be wrong. Now, if this is log data in Elasticsearch, it can be very, very large. So you might need to do some processing of it to get the data mart equivalent, the normalized representation of what you're exploring in there into analytics. Or you could just take a sample and do it in QDA directly. I think I'd probably go with that latter approach, explore it, identify, the pattern that you want in QDA, and then if doing that at scale, is too big for your QDA memory footprint, you can do that analytics processing then with Talend, maybe in your data lake. And I'm only saying data lake because it's log data. Could be larger. Maybe it fits in your cloud data warehouse, but that might run your price up significantly if there's a lot of it and you're doing it in Snowflake.
All right. Thank you. Well, there are a lot of great questions coming in. We'll see how many of these we're able to get through. Hopefully all of them. The next question, what Talend version fully supports Java 17?
Talend 8 currently does, and after, I forget if it's the June or July patch, Java 17 is required. And that is because Java 11 is now officially end of life. And we always provide an extended window of support, but it's long end of life. And so you got to get on Java 17. And after the June or July patch of Talend Studio version 8, it's required. And it's fully supported already. It's been supported for a long time.
Great. Next question. We have Talend job build with Talend Studio 8.0.1 from 2003, which can run fine using a remote engineer server on Talend Cloud. But when trying to use the same job using the remote execution option, use of remote engine on Talend Studio, it's failing. Any ideas?
This is a question for support, right?
Yeah.
They have support ticket. I'll throw out a few ideas here, but they could be false trails as well. So follow up with support. My first thought is make sure you have a recent patch of Talend Studio. If you have a newer remote engine, 2023-10 is a little bit old now. We have monthly releases. Oh no, pardon me. That's the Studio version that you have there. Make sure the remote engine is a relatively recent patch release, and that the Studio is a consistent one. Your Studio's getting a little long in the tooth there. If you have a newer remote engine, maybe there's a mismatch. Typically, they'll run interchangeably when you deploy a Talend job from the TMC to the remote engine in production. But when you're doing that interactive debugging, then there's more possibilities for inconsistencies. So I would say the first one, just get on the same version, make it a relatively recent one. Problem will probably go away.
Great. And moving on, we're using HTTP client component for API. Oh, that was a follow-up. All right. Next question, Talend Pipeline Designer, which is still very prominent in Talend Academy trainings, seems to no longer be part of Qlik Talend Cloud. Any ideas where to use QCDI instead?
Yes, I do. In fact, I'm gonna, if you let me try, I'm gonna share my screen and show you where this is at now at in Qlik Talend Cloud.
That'd be great.
Very quickly. So yes, Qlik Talend Cloud. This is actually the first of the pipeline designer functionality is the first of that Talend functionality to be directly integrated into Qlik Cloud, and I'm showing here on my screen, if you all can see it, what it looks like now within the Qlik data integration project. So within data integration, let me just back up a little bit here. Within data integration, you have you build the pipeline, right? As part of that pipeline, you design transformations. In this case, I'm designing here a transformation. And one of the ways you can transform your data, so you can use SQL, the straight SQL to do it. But if you don't want to or not comfortable with SQL, we have what we call transformation flows. And this is where you can take, your data, the data that you're loading into the system. In this case, I have 3 tables. I have customer data. And what I'm doing here is basically creating a combined set of data out of those 3, right? And I'm not writing any SQL. I'm using functionalities from what used to be Pipeline Designer. We have the what we call the processors that you just drag and drop right into the flow. You configure it. At each step of the way, you get to, see kind of like what the data's looking like for that flow. And at the end of it, you get the final data set, right? In this case, all of it leads to a union data set, right? That's combining all of the data from the different customers. And you can also see the SQL that we're generating for you based on the graphical drag and drop interface that you configure. So this is where Pipeline Designer now lives in Qlik Cloud Data Integration. Again, to help you craft those transformations, we have a whole host of functions here that you can use, right? Including AI functions, if you want to call like native functions, like from Snowflake or Databricks platforms, right? To do Gen AI processing on your textual data, or the traditional functions that you may need to use for joining, unioning, aggregating, filtering, right? You design it graphically, you configure the flow, and then we take care of generating the SQL for the specific platform and giving you the data set that now could be the input to a next step in the pipeline, or it could be the end result in its own right. So this is now where Pipeline Designer is in data integration. There's a similar functionality. So Pipeline Designer was taken, that core functionality, and it's going to live in two places. The first one that's already live, and this is my production tenant, so you can go to your Qlik Cloud or sign up for Qlik Cloud, and you'll have it immediately available, this functionality to work with your data. The one that's coming up is on the analytics side to relieve you from having to write Qlik scripts. So again, the functionality for Pipeline Designer is being taken to give you a front UI to design your transformations and then translate them into either SQL for the platform that QCDI, Qlik Talend Cloud, is working with, or into Qlik scripting for loading in data into an application. And the first one is available now. The one for Qlik application is going to be available in the next, few weeks or months.
So anyway. For the gentleman who's asking, I don't know if they're using a lot of Pipeline Designer currently. I'll call it the legacy Talend Pipeline Designer is still part of the Talend Cloud, and Manuel's laid out its future path very well. It's kind of forking the Pipeline Designer technology, one for SQL generation, for transformation steps within QCDI, and that's great. And the other one is more ETL processing, processing on the Qlik Cloud as you traditionally might do with Qlik script. But that's ETL processing happening in Qlik Cloud. So if you are a Pipeline Designer user today, and you are wanting to do that kind of ETL processing in Qlik Cloud in support of QDA, great. But what you might need to start thinking about migration options is a lot of those users are running Pipeline Designer on remote engines today, either in Spark or locally on a remote engine. And so that is not going away in the near term, but you may want to talk to your sales rep and talk to product management about the long-term future of that, if that's what you're invested in today, because it's going to fork with the focus areas that Manuel described.
Great. And last question we probably have time for today, and it's something we've definitely addressed, but try to run it through once more. What are key differences between Qlik Talend Cloud and Talend, I think is the question.
Yeah, I don't think the parenthesized question is features specifically which are not planned to be migrated. And I don't think there are any such features, because the Talend Cloud is part of the Qlik Talend Cloud package. You can buy Talend Cloud as an independent offering. Qlik Talend Cloud includes both the Talend Cloud and QCDI capability. That's replication plus warehouse automation for the transformation steps that Manuel decided. So Qlik Talend Cloud is a superset of Talend Cloud, and all features continue to be there.
Great. Well, I think that's all the time we have for today. I really appreciate everyone attending and all the great questions. Really appreciate this expert panel we've had for you today, and I hope you all have a great rest of your afternoon. Thank you so much.